Sorry, picture. Hello. Yes. In case there's anybody online, we'll be getting started in just a minute. We'll let some people come in. Is there any set time I should start or just whenever I want? You guys ready? People are coming out. More people with shirts on. Oh, we got some more people. Oh, no. Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes, maybe. Yeah. That's okay. I don't think anybody's joined online. Welcome, y'all. We'll just see. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes, see if anybody else comes in, then we'll get started. I don't want anybody to miss it. We'll say 8:35. Oh yeah. I'm 5 minutes late to everything, so I'll accommodate those people. Of the people in the room, has anybody ever used Flutter before? Nobody? Okay, we got a couple. Well, I worked with y'all on a Flutter app, so I hope you have. Cool. You guys interested in making Flutter an app for this hackathon? Cool. Well, you're in the right place. I hope. Just a minute. If you're online, if you can't hear me for any reason, just let me know. You should be able to hear me. Are you recording this? Okay, cool. Forever. Dr. Plank always like, turn off the recording. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a lawsuit lecture is classic. You've never seen it before. Yeah. T minus 30 seconds. If you want to hop in at any point, feel free to. Same for you guys in the front row. If you want to hop in, you want to correct me on something, just tell me. Okay. All right. Let's go for it. All right, hey, everyone. Sounds good. Thank you, Daniel. So, hello, everybody. I'm Spencer. I'm a grad student here at UT. I have been interested in mobile development for a while. I've had several internships working on both Android and iOS apps, and I've made a couple apps myself using Flutter. I haven't used Flutter professionally, but I really like to use it, and I like to kind of spread the good word about how much I like it. So that's what this workshop is for. I think it's especially useful for hackathons. So that's what I'm talking about, prototyping in Flutter, right? Like quickly hacking something together to present something that's usable and that you can expand on later. That's what I think Flutter is perfect for. So in this talk, we'll have a little bit of introduction. What is Flutter? Why you should use Flutter? Why I think it's good for hackathons, and then I'll give you a bunch of resources to get started. I'm not going to do too much of like live coding just because I think you're better suited to go to the documentation for that, right? I don't think I can tell you everything that you need to know, but I'm going to try to teach you where to find things, or at least tell you where I find things, so that hopefully in this hackathon you'll have the resources you need to succeed. So yeah, before we begin, any questions? Cool. Okay, let's get started. So here's an overview of the presentation. I kind of already went over this, I guess. We're going to talk about Flutter, the Dart language you use to write a Flutter app. We'll get everyone on the path to get set up to develop a Flutter. We'll go over some basics, and then I'll give you some tips and tricks of what I've learned through my time using Flutter, and finally, those list of resources that you'll have to use for the hackathon. I'll definitely send those in the Discord as well, so you have a nice little list of everything there. First of all, what is Flutter? It's a weird word, but it's a cross-platform application framework. There's Google's little blurb about it, right? It's a UI toolkit. Originally started as a way to build Android and iOS apps at the same time, but they ended up expanding it more and more. Now you can make a web app with the same code base. And again, so you have one code base, you write it up one time, and you create a user interface, a UI, that's flexible for different sizes, and then you can deploy that single app to Android, iOS. They added web support recently, and that's out of beta. It's now stable for most cases. And then in beta right now is desktop apps, so Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So the cool thing is, right, you write it once, and then boom, you have all those different platforms all at once. All your users can use it wherever they want to. And Google claims this is the future for their app development, right? They say Android's going to go away. It's going to be replaced by Fuchsia operating system. And they say they're going to tell all developers to write Flutter apps. Now, knowing Google, I don't know if that's actually going to happen because they like to say things and then just pretend they never said that. But for right now, it's a good way to make some apps really quickly on all these different platforms. So why should you choose Flutter over making a native Android app or native iOS? So again, the main benefit is that it's cross-platform. You write it once on all these different devices. And a great thing about that for hackathons, right, is you don't have a lot of time in a hackathon. You only have so many hours. So you write it once, you focus on a single platform, but then all the judges say, this could be the next Facebook. Well, I hope you don't make the next Facebook, but it could be the next $1 million app, right? And you should, think about expanding this. Well, then it's pretty easy with minimal effort to just continue to work on it, deploy it to those different platforms, and you have something that everybody can use. And I think that's a big benefit for it. It requires very minimal effort to import it to other platforms. Versus like if I wrote an Android app in Kotlin and I wanted to release it on iOS, I'd have to rewrite the entire thing in Swift. A lot of professional groups have 2 different teams for that, right? So it's a lot more effort. You save a lot of effort just by writing it once. Another great feature of Flutter is called hot reload. Well, overall, Flutter really focuses on developer productivity, right? So it's a lot easier to make something more quickly with Flutter than it is with native app development. So hot reload means that you can make a change in the code and then pretty much instantly see that change in the app. So it's a lot like web development, right? Where you just refresh a page and it's there. On Android, like you have to use Android Studio and you make a change and then hit build and then it builds for like 2 minutes and then you see the change. And it gets really old really fast, unless you get paid by the hour, I guess. But hot reload is awesome. It's just instant. It basically feels like you're making a web app, even if it is an Android app or an iOS app. So love that. Developer ergonomics, like we talked about, the entire system is built to be easy to develop with. That's what Google calls that kind of idea. So everything from documentation to the tutorials to everything, the language itself, Dart, is built to make it easy to make an app. So again, more productivity in a shorter amount of time. I said easy, breezy, beautiful UIs. Makes it really easy to make a pretty app. You can basically import material, and then you have material design already there to go. It themes your entire app for you in material design. And then if you want to build an Android or an iPhone app, right, instead of material, there's a way to just like, instead of using material components, you use Cupertino. And it is the same app, but it just looks like an iOS app now instead of an Android app. So it makes it really easy to quickly change the lookup based on different platforms. It gets a little more complicated the more platforms you target. Sorry if I'm blabbering. A lot of people don't like cross-platform apps because they're slow, right? But Flutter is really fast. It's almost, they say it's native performance. It's almost native performance, I'd say. So I don't think you have to worry, especially if it's just a pretty simple app. I don't think you have to worry too much about it being too slow for your users, or sometimes like a React app or a Xamarin app, or I don't know if you've ever used those. The official University of Tennessee app, if you use that one, it's really bad. It doesn't feel like that, but it is a lot better. The documentation is awesome, like super great, and everything is in the code itself, because the whole next bullet point, right, is open source and it's free. The entire Flutter platform is open source, so if you have a question, you can literally just click through the code, and it's all commented, so you can see exactly what each function does and what it's doing. Makes it super easy to figure stuff out. And yeah, it's free to use, so why not try it out? So that was kind of an advertisement for Flutter. Hopefully, I got you hooked. Now we can talk about how to use it. To use Flutter, you have to use the Dart language. That's the language made by Google. If you never used Dart before, no one really ever has, but it's actually pretty easy to pick up. If you know Python, or if you know Kotlin or Swift, which are used for app development, or even if you know JavaScript, it's all pretty similar. It's a modern language. It's very concise. There's all different types. I don't think it's strictly enforced types, but you probably want to use types anyways. But if you've never used it before, there's this awesome, again, like Flutter, the Dart documentation is awesome. So this website here, let's see. You have all these language samples. So if you want to find out how to do anything, and I'll include this link, here's your reference, right? So here's how you declare variables. Here's how you use if-else statements. Here's how you declare a function. So you can really just Control F or Command F this document and figure out exactly what you want to do for everything. And there's a more in-depth guide as well, the language tour. So if you want like every single feature of Dart, this is what you want to read, but it's a little more in depth. So I'd start with the language sample, and if it doesn't have what you want, then you can look at the language tour. But don't let Dart be intimidating, because I promise you'll pick it up really quickly. Once you start to use it, you might like it a lot. I know I like it. So now we're going to talk about what do I need to run to build a Flutter app. So you have two different choices. You have Android Studio or VS Code. Just show of hands, has anybody ever used Android Studio before? Okay, we got a couple. Has anybody ever used VS Code before? Cool, more hands. That's what I figured. I recommend, if you've never used Android Studio, to just start with VS Code, because Android Studio is pretty difficult to get set up. It's really bulky, and it can be pretty slow too. So it's a lot easier to set up VS Code for Flutter. So if you have no preference, one or the other, I'd say go VS Code. If you use Android Studio before, and if you love Android Studio, I love Android Studio, but I'm biased because I've spent probably thousands of hours in it at this point. Then I use Android Studio, but I recommend VS Code if you've never used Android. That sounds kind of elitist. I don't mean it to be that way. It's just whatever you're used to. But it's a lot easier to get started with VS Code, I'd say. And there's an awesome getting started documentation here, which I've also included. So you click on your operating system. Let's say you're on Mac, and then you download the SDK. It runs you through the entire process. There's this awesome program called Flutter Doctor, and that basically diagnoses your install. And if there's anything wrong with it, it'll tell you what it is and how to fix it. So setup is really easy. Oh, it should be really easy. If it's not easy, then Flutter Doctor will tell you what's wrong. You can download straight from GitHub if you want, but I wouldn't do that. But anyways, this is the guide to get started. At the end of the talk, if you guys want to stick around, we can kind of get started installing things. And if you run into any issues, if I'm still around, or if one of us is still around, we can help you out. And of course, for any of these things, if you have any questions about Flutter during the weekend, just hit one of us up on Slack. We have our Discord, I'm sorry. On Discord, we have a channel for this workshop that we can answer Flutter questions in all week. Also, if you even are like, whoa, Spencer, I don't even know if I have this whole Flutter thing yet. You can just try it in the browser, right? So there's a thing called dartpad.dev, and you can go to it right now if you're interested. It's an entire IDE in your browser. It lets you, build a Flutter UI and see it displayed up next to you. This is a sample app called Sunflower. It's kind of a demo used in a bunch of different places, but it gives you the basics. You can change code around, see what happens. and it's really, really easy to get started. If you are like a solo hacker, you could potentially build your entire app in Dartpad. It's a lot hard if you're working with a team. There's really no version control or any ways to share the code without like saving the URL and sending it to somebody, and then they look at it and change it and then send it back to you. It's like a scratch pad, right? So it'd be pretty hard to do it that way, but maybe you could. But this is really all you need to get started. If you just want to play around, or let's say you're confused about how something works, open up a Dartpad in the browser and try it out, is what I'd recommend. So that's a good resource to use there. So now we're going to talk about Flutter basics in the honor of the new Buzz Lightyear movie. I made this meme. I should have been doing my homework, but we're going to talk a little bit about the very basics of a Flutter app, what it looks like. I feel like it's very abstract. I want to show you some code, show you the starter templates, and then give you an idea of what widgets are, which we'll get to. So here's a Hello World Flutter app. You can see it's pretty. It looks a little weird, right? It looks kind of like if you've ever used a functional programming language, like all the nested parentheses. It looks a little weird. The good news is that the formatters for Android Studio and VS Code are super good, so you just format it automatically. It'll make it look pretty, even if you type everything on one line, and it'll make it really nice. But this code is from the website howtodothisiNFlutter.com, which is another resource I'll provide you. It's the Flutter cheat sheet. It has all sorts of different little snippets of code of basic things you want to get done. You can use that as a template and then build out from there. So you're first making your app. You might want to copy this and then start from there. We can look at it just a little bit. So here at the very top, I have a laser pointer. We think it works. Whoa. At the very top, it says import, right? So you're importing the material package. This is how you make your app have material design and have access to those resources. Material design is used on Android apps. That's kind of the style they support there. So especially if you're making an Android app, you'll probably want to use material design. But there's a style guide on the documentation that gives you more details about each platform. But don't worry about that right now. You have a main method, right? Your entry point. All that does, oh no, spoiler alert. All you do here is run app. That's the one command you have to have in your app is run app. And then you give it your root widget, right? So everything is a widget, including your app is its own widget, and it's a widget tree, right? So you have the root widget, then you have child widgets, and then those children have children, and those children have children. That's how it's organized, but it's basically just nested widgets all the way down to all your pages are going to be widgets. All the elements on the pages are widgets. So that's a word you'll hear a lot, but it basically just is an object, right? Or just a little, I don't know how to even describe it. It's like object oriented, right? But objects are widgets. That's not a good explanation. We'll talk about it. We'll get to the details here. So my app is a widget, and that's your root. So you declare class my app extends stateless widget. There it is. Every single widget you make will either extend stateless widget or a stateful widget. But we'll get to that in the next slide. And here, what are we doing? We're defining a function called build, and it returns a widget. And actually, people in Discord can't see the laser pointer. Widget build, right? It returns a widget. And then here's the widget we're returning is material app. It has a title. And then these are just nested widgets, right? So scaffold is a widget that provides like the header bar and the content. So you have the header bar, and then the body is like the content on the page of the app. A center widget, all that does is get all the widgets inside of that center and centers it on the page, right? So unlike CSS, super easy to center stuff. And then the child here is just a text widget that says hello world. So when that displays on your screen, you're just going to see a text centered in the screen that says hello world with the title bar that also says hello world with an exclamation point. So it seems a little complicated, but once you kind of get in that mindset of nesting widgets inside of other widgets, it gets really easy to build really simple or even complicated apps. So there's two types of widgets, stateful widget and a stateless widget. We're starting with stateless widget. The key difference is, does it change or does it not change, right? So state is just data that might change. So if it's stateless, it means it doesn't have data that will change. So here we have a widget called greeter. It extends stateless widget. And this is a constructor. This means they pass the name in. And then this name you can see is a final string, so that means it doesn't change. The build function here, all it does is return a container with a text that says hello name. And because we know that this name doesn't change, that's all you have to do, right? You just declare a build function. It tells it how to build, and build just means how do we display the app on the screen. And you tell it how to build a widget by giving it more widgets to build. And those widgets build more widgets, I guess. But yeah, anyways, so all you have to do for a stateless widget is define build and then spit that out to the screen. And there's another really good documentation. It maybe takes like 5 minutes to read, and it does a really good job of explaining the different types of widgets, or just stateful versus stateless. So let's say you want something on your screen to change, right? That's when you need stateful widget. So here is example of a stateful widget. Unlike a stateless widget, a stateful widget, we don't declare the build in the widget itself. We have to declare a function called create state, and then oh no, where'd I go? Here we go. We have to declare a function called create state, and that shows us how to create a state object, which is kind of a funny name now I look at it. Widget with state, because the widget is called widget with state. We're creating the state for that widget, which is called widget with state. So again, and no build here, just create state. And then we're going to declare another class called widget with state, which extends the state of widget with state. There's a lot of states. I'm sorry about that. But the important part here, right, is that this has data that can change. So you can see up here we have an integer counter. That's a value of the state that can change. It's not a final int. We can see here we have two methods within this class, increment and decrement, where we just add to the counter and decrement from the counter. But the difference here is that we wrap them in this function called set state. What that means is that it's whenever you change a part of your state and you want the widget to update, you call set state and then put whatever code you're updating the state with inside that function. Because then here within the state, here's where we define the build function, right? And then in the build function, all we're doing is returning a row. You can see, so that's like another widget where you give it multiple children and it puts them in a row together. And the children are two buttons. So we're gonna have two buttons in a row next to each other, increment and decrement. And whenever we press those buttons, it will call those two different methods there. And and then we have the text. So it's going to be increment, decrement, and then the end of the row is a text widget that just displays the counter value. So the cool part is that whenever you press one of those buttons, see on pressed increment, you press this button, it's going to call increment, which increments the counter, but it also calls set state. So what that does is recall the build function. And when it rebuilds, I keep clicking, I'm sorry. When it rebuilds, it's going to update that text to have the new value. All I have to say is that when you have a stateful widget and you update the state, you're going to see it change on the screen, right? You don't have to like find that text view and then update it yourself with the new counter value. It just knows to rebuild it, and when it rebuilds it, it'll have that new value. That's a lot. I don't know if I'm the best at explaining it, but again, I'll give you all these resources. Thank you, appreciate it. I'll give you all these resources you need to be able to read more about it and get really comfortable with these two basic concepts. And I promise, once you learn these two things, you're smooth sailing. You'll start nesting widgets and making whatever you want. All right, so now I'm just going to go into the tips and tricks that I've found, maybe some things you might want to consider for your app. Number one is focus on one platform, right? I know it's tempting to say, oh man, I want to make an app at this hackathon and we're going to demo it on iOS and on Android and on the web and on Linux and macOS. But it's, it's not difficult to port it, but it's a lot more effort. I think your efforts are better spent focusing on one app to demo versus trying to focus on multiple apps to demo. That doesn't mean when you build it, don't just totally forget about the other platforms and hard code stuff in. Oh, the screen will never be bigger than this size, right? Kind of stuff. But I would just say especially for your team, to sync up on one platform. I recommend either Android or the web. I know everyone loves iOS apps, but unless you all have MacBooks, you actually can't run an iOS emulator for Flutter or for any app. It's just the way Apple rolls, right? If you don't have a MacBook, you can't build an iPhone app. I don't have a MacBook, but so what that means is I could write an entire app on Flutter, borrow my friend's MacBook, and then use that to build it on the iOS. And in theory, it all just works. You might have to tweak a few things when you actually see it running. So don't think I lied that, oh, you actually can't build iOS apps. You can. You just have to have the MacBook to actually build it and deploy it. So yeah, I'm a big Android guy, so I like Android, but web is also good to get started with. I also recommend split your app screens in different Dart files. So typically, each page will be its own widget, and just making separate files for each of those widgets mean that you can work on the different pages separately. So let's say you have an idea, you have a design, you split that design up into different screens, and then everyone on your team can then start designing the interface for each of these different screens, and they're on separate files. And then you go push it to GitHub, and then you have three different, you have three people on your team, you have three different files that then you can connect together. It just keeps you from having one file that gets super duper long, and then all your code's in one file and it's 5,000 lines, and that's no fun. Also, another great thing about Flutter and Dart is there's all sorts of packages at pub.dev is a website that you can go to, and that's kind of like it's a package repository, right? It's kind of like pip, pip install anything you want, and then you have a library to use in Python. Same thing for Dart. There's a huge active community that makes all sorts of packages. So before you start coding something up that's going to take a long time, say, I wonder if someone else has already done that, and then you can just import it. But then don't tell the judges that, right? You did it all yourself. But there's all sorts of cool stuff you can use, including, if you're interested, there's alternate state management choices, right? So instead of calling that set state method, there's all sorts of different things you can use. A big one is Flutter hooks. If you've ever used React, React.js has React hooks now. I think it's what they still recommend. I don't know. It changes every 6 months. But yeah, but React hooks, it's the same thing in Flutter, right? You just use hooks instead of the set state thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and I barely know what I'm talking about, just don't worry about it. You'll be fine just using the default methods. But if you're more interested in some of those other options, Provider and Riverpod are big, you can look at those. But for most of my apps I make just quickly, I don't think it really matters. Here, so when in doubt, control click. That's because all the documentation is built into Flutter itself, into the source files. So let's say you have a widget, the center widget. Oh, what does this do? You can really just either hover your mouse over it or take you to the source code for the widget, the center widget, give you there'll be a really pretty comment above it that tells you exactly what it does and what the parameters are, which I love about it. The documentation is better than any other documentation I've ever seen before, probably because it's so new. I'm sure it'll eventually turn into garbage, like everything does, but for right now, it's awesome. Another awesome thing about Flutter is that you can do all sorts of animations and pretty stuff. Pretty user interfaces win hackathons. The judges love to see that kind of stuff. But maybe save that for the end. Focus on the basics first, and then when you have extra time, then I would start to add in some animations. And again, the tutorials for all that stuff online as well. And speaking of that, the Google calls what they have what they call code labs, which is like little mini tutorials where you can say how to animate in Flutter. You might see animation code lab by Google, That's really awesome. It's like a step-by-step example app that shows you how to implement animations. I find those super helpful if I don't know anything. If I don't know how to do something, it's a great way to quickly see it in action. Here at the hackathon, we're hacking stuff together. So you might not go through the whole demo, the whole code lab doing each step by step. You might just go to the last step and look at the code and then kind of, copy paste into your app. But I find those are really useful resources. So I highly recommend looking at those if you're stuck. Here's all those links I told you about, which I'll send in the Discord. Let's see. I think I talked about all of them. But yeah, there's just some like introduction to widgets. Will tell you about the difference between a stateful and stateless widget. The cheat sheet is where I got the code from earlier, and here's the getting started right here. So yeah, those are the links. I'll send those in the Discord right after this. And I believe that's it. So that's a lot of talking. I only went for 30 minutes, so we have some extra time. I think. If you have a time limit. Okay. Cool. Okay. So I guess, does anybody have any questions about Flutter? Does anybody have any ideas for an app they want to make and wants like any guidance on how to get started or anything like that? Yeah. Adam. I don't think Atom is officially supported by Google, but I bet there's a plugin for it. Yeah, I'd say it's probably, yeah, I'd say there's the official setup guide gives you the option Android Studio or VS Code. I'm sure there's a way to do it on Atom, but I just am not familiar with that. But if you find out, let me know because that's kind of cool. My brother uses Atom. He always talks about it. Yeah. Right. It's all, I guess they're both owned by Microsoft now, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, good question. Can you use Vim? What you said? Oh, okay. I use VS Code Vim, so like I use Vim keyboard shortcuts, but yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah. But any questions about anything else we talked about? Is that everyone feeling good? I don't want it to be intimidating. If you're intimidated, then that means I did something wrong. But yeah, I want it to be really interesting or a really easy introduction. And I really think that with these resources, you could totally make something awesome by Sunday. I think anybody could. I know y'all can because you're here at VolHacks. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about examples. I had some stuff I've made. I wonder where it is. Daniel, I'm allowed to go to get open your computer. Let me see if I can find myself. Let me see. Where is it? Am I doing something wrong? Oh, I see. There's another Spencer Howell. Spencer Howell's. Okay. Um. So here's an app I made with with Flutter, like a workout app. So it's like it simulates a deck of cards, and then each card gives you a different workout to do. I made this in quarantine. I was in my room, and I was like, I have to move to do something. So this is like a workout app you can use. So it's really easy. You can see I have animations in there. That was super easy to add, where the card flies out of the way. And again, that's like a stateful widget where I just update the card to display, and it automatically refreshes the page. There's two buttons, some text there at the bottom, a card at the top, aces or rest, and I have a little timer that goes there. So that's a little simple app. let's see at the end, if you quit the workout, here we go. Like it's listening to me. If you quit the workout, it'll give you a demo, right? It'll give you a summary of this is what you did. And that's that. What else did I make? Yeah, it's open source. So if you want to, yeah, oh, let's see. Here's here's main dark. Yeah, so yeah, it's open source. You can fork it. Like you can use it, present it. Pretty good. It's all just widgets all the way down. Just one step at a time, right? Where's something else? I did a Flutter hackathon too. This one's kind of silly, but oh yeah. Also, if you ever use make a GitHub, you have a little screen recording. Like judges like that a lot apparently. I didn't win for this. I didn't win this. I got voted out the first round of this hackathon. But this is like a more fun app. It was supposed to look like a Sony Walkman. Yeah, I called it the Dartman. I wish I had a picture of it. I had one in another post, on the official post. I had a picture, but it was a music player, right? And I did some animations with the little wheel, and then it looks like a cassette tape deck thing that opens up. Yeah, lots of different fonts and stuff makes it. Yeah, you can download it, but no, it's not on the Play Store. I only have it here. I'm always meant to put it on the Play Store, but I don't want to. I don't know. So maybe I should. You have to pay $25. Not too bad. Yeah, yeah, you have to pay $100 a year for Apple. So, anyways, those are like little simple things. You can see it's fun to make kind of expressive user interfaces. It makes it really easy to do that here in Flutter. Oh yeah. Oh wait, did I not talk about Attendio? Wait, where do I find that? Tucker Miles? Oh, check out this guy. Um, oh, we don't have a. Oh, where? I want to see the final product. Where is it? I can't find it. I actually have it in the slides. Oh yeah. Let me look. Ooh, okay, so here's. Oh no. Oh no. It's not scrolling. Oh, here we go. So here's an app with a bunch of different pages. You can see you can have maps. You can have different inputs. Oh, this looks really good, Tucker. So yeah, so there's another example of something you can make with Flutter. What is this, Tucker? Is this for class? 340. Cool. There's another Flutter app. Maybe not. I think we just submitted it and left. Our senior design project was a Flutter app, so that's what this is, but we can't find it. But I think on the slides I had a picture because we did, mobile and web here, and you can see, it's one app and we use it on the web and also a mobile. It worked on iOS too in theory. We never deployed it to iOS, but like attendance tracking app using a QR code. I think it's no, I think it was just with Dr. Ikove, right? Yeah, no one really wanted it. We just made it. Oh, okay. Right. Nice. Nice. Cool. Yeah. So does anybody want any questions? Anybody want help getting Flutter set up? Or is everyone um yeah, anything we can do to help? Yes. With that, yeah, okay. Um, so there'll probably be there's a definitely like plugins for like HTTP requests, right? So a lot of you can do just use those to post and get from a server. The easiest thing to do for a hackathon. That's cool. I'm a front end guy, I guess. So I never think about that, but it's important. So for Flutter, the easiest thing to do is use Firebase. Have you ever had experience with Google Firebase before? It's super like tightly knit with Flutter, so it makes there's a plugin for Firebase. Um, there's a code lab for it. That's what I use to learn. Um, but it's really easy to just because Firebase, right? The whole point of that is it live updates the data, and then Flutter, your Flutter app can observe that data. Like that's what Tendio did. You just observe that data, and whenever it changes, your app's UI changes automatically. So it makes it really easy to plug into that. Um, yeah, Firebase is free. Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. You basically install the plugin and use that. If you have another thing you prefer to use, there's libraries to help you, hit you different URLs and stuff. But if you have no preference, I'd say go for Firebase. It makes it really easy, and it's free up to a certain amount. And I think do we get like a certain amount of credit? Okay, right. Yeah. Well, I think it's the same. I think it's the same account. So I think so. Yeah. 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 And you get it for free. Like you get so much for free. So, but that's a whole sidetrack. But yeah, I use that. Of course, another I guess hackathon tip. If you probably already know, but you can kind of hard code your data in at first, and then if you have time, then you add the database. But um, yeah, that's you can always have one team member working on the database, and everyone else just has hard coded data, and then you connect them. So yeah, good question. Um, but yeah, I know about time, but I'll be hanging around for a little bit longer. You got a question? Oh, I appreciate it. Cool. Who's gonna use Flutter at the hackathon? Anyone? Maybe any maybes out there? Okay, cool. That's all I need. All right. So I'm Spencer with ACM. Thanks for coming to the Tech Talk. Awesome. Thank you for those who joined